We're here to share with you inspiring stories that bring to life all the little and big ways that people bring more love, joy, laughter, and humanness to everyday life. Our focus is the hunt for those little moments that refuel the human soul and reminds us what life is really all about. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the moments, enjoy the stories, the adventures, and the journeys. Welcome back to another episode of What the World Needs More Of. I'm your host, Jarek Robbins, and I'm joined by a very special guest, someone I've known for a handful of years now, who gives the best hugs in the world. I was telling him as we jumped on before this recording that I miss his hugs. They're one of my favorite things I used to get from time to time when we would meet up around the world. Mr. Kermit Miller, thank you, sir, for joining us.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Jarek.
Well, we're excited to have you. So we're going to jump right in for the question of the show, which is, what do you feel the world needs more of?
Well, I've been actually contemplating this for a couple of days now, and some of the things I thought of was civility. We've become a society of really being uncivil to each other. And then I thought about respect. We need more respect for others and what they're going through in their life and their hopes and dreams. I thought about honesty and morals and ethics. I thought about integrity, being yourself, following through. I thought about discipline, having self-discipline to do things and do it right, and do your job for your employer, be a good boss and things like that. And I thought about patience as I get the finger when I'm driving as an older guy now. I don't go as fast, so I've had more people that I'm in their way. Self-respect came into mind and encouragement. But finally, I came back to love and compassion because I listened to your podcast and I kind of felt that was kind of the center of what you talk about. And I'll share this little story with you. But it was back in the 80s when we went through the farm crisis. We were going through divorce as well and losing our farm, and I was quite angry with the bankers and the attorneys and all of these people. And so when I was kind of having these little times of self-pity, I would tell the Lord, when I die, I want to be put in charge of lightning, kind of like Sheldon, on The Big Bang Theory when his flash costume. I could show up and give these guys a blast at the most inopportune times, But then one day I thought, there's more people in the world that I love and care about. And if I show up with my flash costume and my bolt of lightning, I'm going to look pretty stupid. So I guess in all, it comes back to love and compassion. I really think that's what the world needs more of. So, yeah.
So here's a question. How do you bring that more into life each day in the way you go about?
Well, I think I try to be more patient and have more empathy and appreciative of the people I interact with, whether they're a clerk or, in a fast food place or servers, in restaurants, the clerks in stores and shops, the people I interact with and do business with. We still do insurance and real estate, and I try to make those people feel appreciative of the help they give me and the service. And as an employer, I've always got right in there. I never asked anybody to do a job I wouldn't do, and the dirtiest jobs I would tend to do with them. And then I kind of followed what my dad taught me. He said, sometimes a simple, sincere thank you and appreciation, genuine appreciation is sometimes worth more than money, to an employee. So
it's true.
Yeah.
I was doing some research and taking a new course just a couple weeks ago, and it was so interesting. She was teaching us in corporate values. So often the owners think the employees want to get paid more, but in actuality, when they check the box that says they'd like more employee recognition, what that means is not a gold watch and not a fancy vacation, but just people who stop, look you in the eyes and say, hey, thank you so much for taking time to do that. I really appreciate it. And that little employee recognition for what they're actually doing in the moment means the world to people. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think the world does need more of that, and more love and compassion in all that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So
pat on the back.
Pat on the back. I've had a privilege of knowing you for a few years now, and I'd love to share with the world and ask, what do you feel your wow factor is, and what makes you uniquely you, and what are some of the life moments that help shape it?
Well, that's a huge, huge question. Mm-hmm. You know, I think my wow factor is really probably to realize that life isn't always peaches and cream and goes smooth for everyone. And I think it's realizing that other people have their issues, you know, their problems, and they're trying to work through their lives as well. You know, I grew up with parents that were born around the 1900s, and morals and ethics were very important to my parents. And, you know, we were taught that your reputation was more value than money and position. You know, it's not what you think. Your reputation isn't what you think of yourself. It's what other people see in you and respect you for. I think, you know, my parents died when I was 18. When my mom passed away, I was 24 when my dad passed away. And my sisters were very big influence in my life, and my older brother. They helped shape a lot of my early attitudes and things. Some interesting things, you know, when you talk about what your wow factor is, I think it might be developing adaptability and, as my daughter said, tenacity or perseverance to keep on going when things are, whether they're good or bad. And sometimes it's more important to be able to understand the problems that come at you are really not unsolvable, but they come at you as something to, if you can look at it as something to be solved, if you can come into that problem and say, look, if this was happening to my son or my daughter, what would be the advice that I would give them? How would I tackle this? And if you can pull yourself out of the pain and the suffering of the moment and look at it as a problem solver, you can work through things much better.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so very true. It's amazing when you get a different perspective on the same problem, especially for some reason when we look at if someone else was facing it, oh, shoot, I would just do X, Y, and Z. But when we're facing it ourselves, X, Y, and Z seem so distant in that moment because we're so stuck in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so very true. Out of all these years, what's been your most humbling moment, a moment that has made you feel incredibly humble along the journey?
When you asked me to be a part of your podcast.
Aw.
Really? Wow. I actually, it's all about, there's a couple of things there. One is most recently, my 14-year-old grandson and his 11-year-old brother were practicing their golf swings and so forth. And the littlest brother is smaller statured, thank heavens, but as he was taking a swing at his ball, he came around and he caught the older brother right above the eye. Oof. And split his forehead open. And we didn't know it at the time, but it crushed his skull. And so when they got him to the emergency room, they immediately took him to the Children's Hospital in Iowa City. and did surgery, and they had to cut him from ear to ear over the top of his head and peel that forward so they could operate and clean the bone fragments out and so forth, and then put a plate in. And I got to the hospital a couple of days later. A little of the swelling had gone down. Ryan could see out of his eyes a little bit. But the inspiring moment came when their pastor came in to pray with him. And he asked Ryan, what he would like him to pray for. And without hesitation, my little brother. So even through all that pain, he was concerned about his little brother and how he was doing. Oh. And that really inspired me as, wow, what a boy,
Oh, so selfless, even in that moment of pain.
Yeah, I just think that's people that can help others even when they have their own problems. That's inspiring.
That is inspiring. It was interesting. We did an interview with a couple whose wife had just gone through her second double lung transplant. And they crack her open and cut her down the middle and pull both lungs out and put new ones in and then pray and hope that they work. And he said the most awe-inspiring moment he had was seeing her smile when she was scrambling with her fingers to try to point to words after, because she couldn't talk after the surgery, but she was pointing, and she had the biggest smile on her face. And the first thing she said is, "I can breathe." And they were crying, just going, "Yeah, it's working." And the second thing she said was right when the other doctor was walking in the room, she was scrambling to write a message, and it just said, "Thank you for believing in me when no one else would. And thank you for working on me and saving my life when everyone else said there was no hope." And I was like,
wow.
Oh. And like your grandson, someone who's thinking about everyone else in the room, even when they're the one in the hardest situation of the moment. What a beautiful place to be able to live.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's a moment. What about an awe-inspiring moment? A moment that left your jaw on the ground?
Wow. That's a tough one. I hadn't thought about that. Mm-hmm. I can think of a lot of little ones, when people do something for someone and it's unappreciated, It might, this is a little deeper and maybe not where you'd expect to go, but I'm thinking of our community. An uninspiring moment is when we, after 20 years of tolerating, illegal people working here, and they'd settled down and our community was growing and thriving, with the diversity of the different, nationalities. At one point we had 26 different nationalities here in our little town of 2,200 people. And then the government came in and raided us and took almost 1,000 people out of that's wrong. Out of 1,000, they took about 500 people and left the kids in the school. I mean, they took the adults and they were gone. Nobody gave a hoot about the children. And so the community had to rise up and take care of the kids. That was pretty uninspiring to me. I watched the police show up with their buses and their dogs and helicopters overhead. I was uninspired. I thought it could have been so many better ways.
Yeah. That one feels like it would take the wind right out of the community.
It did. It's been 10 years now. We just got our first new house being built now after 12 years. We built the last spec house in our little town 12 years ago. And so we're really not recovering, but we're just marking time. It's hard to watch the rest of the communities around us thrive, and we're just poking along. So, yeah.
What about the opposite? So an uninspiring moment. What about an awe-inspiring moment? One that was beautiful and lifted you right back up.
I think that's a tough one too. There's for me, going back, and it's almost fits into the humbling one too. I was caught in a farm accident 30 years ago, and we had crops in the field and so forth, and one of the community leaders, a man I had a huge respect for, organized a harvesting bee, and neighbors and community people came and helped harvest our field and fill our silos, and there was people I didn't know showed up, and I was inspired by the love of a small community, and it was amazing, and we recently did this similar thing. Other people were involved, but I have a nephew that's fighting cancer, and they had a harvesting bee last fall, and so that inspires me when people come together and help people when they need it, whether they knew them close or not, or just because it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
That inspires me too. It's beautiful when people come from far and wide, and in all circumstances too. Sometimes in those situations, you'll see people show up who are going through a tough time themselves, but it's such a beautiful gift that they still show up to give. And I think even when you're going through the toughest times yourself, for some reason, when you reach out and just try to help someone else, it reminds you how much you really have. And if you have enough to share with someone else, it makes you feel abundant no matter how tough the time currently is, which is a beautiful feeling.
Yes, it is.
Here's a twist. What's your greatest fear?
Oh. To be really, truly honest, next to losing a child or a grandchild, or, and having them suffer some debilitating disease, for myself, it's actually, suffering a stroke or becoming dependent on others to take care of myself. I just want to pull my own sled right up to the end. That's what it is. I joke with my kids, my main goal in life, Jerry, is to live long enough to become a problem to them. And one day I'm telling that to one of my neighbors, and my son pipes up and says, "You're already a problem, Dad."
Achieved. Well, that was certainly sweet of him to share.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really lucky. I have a great relationship with my kids, and I treasure that. Something I'd like to share about raising children. When you talk about love, and I think that's, again, your theory. Children will. I'm a firm believer that children will rise up, or they'll live up to or down to what you tell them. If you brag your kids up and tell them they're great kids, you can, they're the best, you can see that sparkle in their eye. And my grandkids, I'm amazed that I can tell them they're the best little boy or girl every time they come. And every time you can just feel them respond positively to that. To me, that's the most heartwarming thing a grandfather can do, or a parent, or a friend, honestly. But if you tell somebody they're bad, and they're, every day they're going to be bad. The same way with employees. I always try to make the people around me feel appreciated, and that they're, that their efforts are recognized. And I think it helps them be a better clerk, or a better employee, or a better friend. If nobody wants to be around somebody that criticizes them all the time.
That's true. It's one of the downfalls of relationships is criticism.
Oh, yes.
Versus appreciation and respect are one of the builders, and so is understanding and acknowledgement. It's amazing. Little things make such a big difference in the world around us, in all relationships, friendships, business relationships, intimate relationships.
Yep. Here's a little humor on that mode. When Lana came here, she immigrated from Kazakhstan. And she and her friends would paint apartments for me and clean houses, rental houses and things. And so one day I asked the girls if they would bring some flowers and plant, in the yard. And so Lana brought over 5 tulip plants, and she planted them straight out from the back porch on the lawn, right in the grass, without any tilling of the soil or whatever. So I get home and I look at that and I think, wow, look at that. Well, okay. But then when she came back, she asked if I liked the flowers. And I said, oh, yes, you did a great job. So probably 10 years later, after we got married, we're sitting on the back porch one evening and drinking a glass of wine and admiring her garden, because she's developed a great skill in gardening for a girl that never mowed lawn, never gardened, never raised flowers. And so I get the proverbial elbow in the ribs. And I said, what's that for? And she says, in her little broken English a little bit, she says, in reality, you're really stupid, Kermit. I said, what do you mean? And she reminded me of her planting those flowers. She says, in reality, you know nothing about gardening.
Oh.
So that one kind of came back to haunt me.
Yeah. We got to show her a better way, and she'll build you up instead of tear you down.
Yep.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about for the future?
Oh, wow. I think for me, it's a better balance of time and work, being able to take time to help my children when they need it, rather than, having to schedule it. I mean, my son was wiring a big hog confinement building and he needed some help, and I could just go, and help him. Being able to control my days, more so. We're developing, like a 6th career in the pavement sealer business. I'm excited about developing that. So kind of like Colonel Sanders, I'm just going to keep on going until, as I kind of come to the fact, outside of the pain, of joint pain and, aging things, mentally, I feel good. I can still plan more than I can get done in a day. But I'm excited about being able to keep on going. Just with the, I think aging, 73 years of experience in life, understanding really about what life is about, it's not so much about the accumulation of wealth or making the most money. I think it's about being a positive in people's lives. I think it's about enjoying each day. I think it's about being of service. Because when you get all done, and you look back, a garage full of toys or cash in the bank isn't really what it's about. I think it's memories, treasured friendships, good family relationships. I think it's those memories that you leave. And my parents left me wonderful memories, even though they've been gone for over 50 years. I still remember my mom and dad with great fondness and love.
That's beautiful. Positive in people's lives, being of service, leaving beautiful memories, and having deep relationships with your family and the ones you love.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you said introduced me. You said one of the things you remembered were the hugs, and I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. It wasn't for my wit, it wasn't for my good looks. It was for how good that hug felt.
Hey, those two were straight behind the good hugs, but the good hugs took the trophy on this one.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're going to switch gears to the second part of the show. We call this the nuts and bolts, which are the tactical, practical, tangible things that someone listening can take and immediately apply to their life or situation. And so the first is, where do you currently focus the majority of your thoughts and time and life each day as of right now?
Well, basically, I have a list of things that I want to get done And each day I try to get one of those things done. I I always try to do the hardest things or the worst things first, get them out of the way, because then the rest of the time, it gets more fun as you go through the day. And I think looking at each day and the problems that come at you as something to be solved rather than to be suffered through. And I think having an attitude of adapting to change and perseverance is important, because things are going to go wrong. So why get upset when they do go wrong? I mean, equip yourself to handle those things and become a problem solver. And
I love that.
I think, yeah.
In all that and everything that you're up to, what do you say is one of the keys to your success?
Adaptability and perseverance. I have changed careers actually 6 times. We started out as farming. We were successful in that. Of course, the government changed the rules there. And we went from massive production to where the interest rates were raised to 18-21%, put a lot of farmers out of business. Then we got into insurance and real estate business, and we were fairly successful at that. But of course, now we kept getting downsized as the banks leaned on our farm customers. They wanted them under their control. The Obamacare was really hard on us as insurance agents in the health insurance field. Of course, the landlord and renting business, we did really well with that for a long time. But again, the raid really kind of brought that to a crash and burn. We built houses and did a fair amount of developing in our little city here. I think one of the things that really helped me cope with all of this is joining multi-level marketing. We were in Amway for quite a long time. I've been in several of them. And it isn't that we made a lot of money. I think, they're hard to do. And I don't think, the average person, as we know, doesn't make a lot of money on it. But what you do come away with, though, is if you participate in their weekend workshops and their events, they always bring in successful people to talk. There's always something to learn. That's where I met you, is through text message marketing. The weekends that you were there and spoke were very informative. I learned a lot about interaction with people. I love the one, where you gave the talk about the difference between men and women. And when you want to talk to your wife or a woman, to get her attention, you reach over and touch her. I'd always try to talk to Lana, and she'd just keep on talking. And so I tested that out, Jerry. I reached over and I touched her on the arm, and it's just like I turned her off. It was amazing, And so I still use that today. We're going down the road, and she'll be talking and blabbing, and I want to get 2 cents in, and so I have to reach over and touch her on the arm, and she'll stop, and I can say, I have something to say. So I think there's a huge advantage to belonging to positive groups that way, and reading books. I mean, I've read your dad's books. I've read a lot of great books. The Power of the Subconscious Mind, I think, actually saved my life. That one, I think, talks about as being doesn't really say it in the book, but being one of God's children, your Father in heaven wants to bless you and love you just like your real father does. And it's easy for me because my father really loved me. Now, I realize some people don't have that great relationship, but your Lord wants to bless you, and he wants to hear from you. You need to thank him for your blessings. And then on the other side, like a small child, ask him for those gifts. When we were stuck after that raid, I was sitting on a house that we couldn't get sold. I was paying $1,500 a month for 18 months. I mean, that's taken me down. I mean, this is hard on the cash flow. And in there it said, and then to visualize, envision the check, envision what you need, and to be real about it. Don't ask for the $195,000 that you know you're not going to get. I needed $150,000, $60,000 to clear. Excuse me. And then we got an offer for $156,000. So that the power of your mind is very important. And the work you do, Jerry, in helping people think through life and understand life and live life and the journey of life is very important. You do very important work.
Oh, thank you.
Amen.
Amen. I believe it. That's why we work so hard at it. So we have our final question. What is one actionable tip that can help others achieve and experience the kind of success in their life that you've experienced in yours? Something they can take away and immediately apply that might help them do a little better each day.
I think define your goal, define where you want to go, and then understand there's steps to get there. It's like going up a stairs. You can't jump to the top of the steps right away. You need to identify the steps to get there and take them one at a time. I think that's the most important thing, is to understand how things are done. They're done a step at a time.
I love that. And it's so true. We always call them mile markers, but I like the stairs analogy too. If you're going to go from the top to the bottom, you got to take it one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, sir, thank you for sharing so much love and life. I loved all the pieces you shared in the beginning of what the world needs more of: civility, respect, honesty, integrity, discipline, patience, self-respect, and all the way back to the deepest part of love and compassion. I certainly loved all the stories and adventures you took us on, and thank you so much for opening up and sharing so much with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. I hope it's been of benefit and interesting,
Well, I have a page and a half of notes over here, so it's certainly interesting from my perspective.
Yeah. Well, when you first talked about this, I thought, how do you put 73 years of life experience in, say, 30 minutes? And I think, wow, I kind of sort through and find the highlights. But thank you for thinking of me, and I enjoyed contributing.
Of course. And for everyone who's tuning in, thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you enjoyed this episode and you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them. We believe that sharing is caring, and we like caring people around here, so make sure to share. And as always, if you enjoyed what you're hearing from episode to episode, make sure to click subscribe on iTunes or Google Play, and that way you can get updated each and every time the new episode is released. So we hope you all have an amazing day, and we look forward to seeing you all next episode.